Hey everyone, my name is Jen Cook Michigan, and I am the Community Engagement and Marketing Specialist for the Austin Clinic. We are here today to talk about the big beast of IEPs. I have extensive knowledge on IEPs from my former work, where I worked for a political action committee on an education reform, and I worked with our school districts and my own kids' accommodations for the past 9 years. So combined, I have some knowledge that I would love to share with you guys and answer any questions when you are starting out on this journey, or maybe you're in the midst of it and you just have clarifying questions. So let's get started. When you first start out on your IEP journey, communication is going to be the foundation of a successful IEP team. That relationship that you're forming with this team is going to carry you through this journey. And the goal of the parents and your IEP team is to create a collaborative effort towards your child's best education experience possible. And that starts out with good, clear communication between parents, the school, and your team. It is the best way to safeguard that your IEP is being implemented as appropriately as possible and exactly how you and your team discussed in your IEP meeting. So when problems arise, and they will, you can get those problems resolved rather quickly if you have good communication with your team, and you can make sure over and over that your child's needs are being met. So let's have a real conversation about how to initiate and nurture a successful team that best supports your child's future. So the first question is, what's an IEP? An IEP stands for Individualized Education Program, and it is a written document that is developed with the public schools and the team for anyone who is eligible for special education. The IEP is created through a team effort and is reviewed at least once a year. Many times you will go in multiple times a year and review and change and navigate a whole new IEP for your child, depending on where their needs are and how they're being met or not being met. But before the IEP can be written, your child must be eligible for special education. So by federal law, a multidisciplinary team must determine that A, your child has a disability, and 2, requires special education and related services to benefit from general education programs. So the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, it's a mouthful, is a federal law, and that is where IEPs fall under. It requires certain information to be included within the IEP, but it doesn't specify exactly what the IEP looks like. And that's because states and local school systems vary on how their IEPs are written out. Some will include additional information, some eliminate information, and this will vary from district to district, school to school. You can live 5 miles away, and that school will have a complete different process of IEPs than the school that you previously were at. And that is part of the reason why IEPs are so confusing and so daunting for parents, is because they're not the same. It would be very easy for all IEPs to be the same, district to district, school to school, but that doesn't necessarily benefit the child. And that is all the IEP is about. So the local school systems may include additional information. They may include forms that are different, and that may be state to state, and it may also vary within school systems and within a state. So after you've established that your child is one of those 2 criterias, you have an IEP team. And who makes up the IEP team? So the IEP team are really the stakeholders of your child's education. They are the people that want your child to be successful. That is what it boils down to. All of these people on your IEP team should all have the same goal, and that is to get your child through school with the best education that they can give and for your child to have the best education experience possible. So who are these people on that team? One, the parents. You guys are the people that know your child. You are the ones that have valuable insight. You have information about their extracurriculars, their therapist, what they're doing after school, what their strengths are, what their struggles are. Those are all key elements on enhancing their education and creating a circle of knowledge for everyone to know. The next person is your general education teacher. And that is someone who can share information about your classroom expectations and your child's performance within that classroom, and really just giving you knowledge on how that looks on a day-to-day basis. And then you have your special education teacher, who has the training and the experience in educating children with disabilities and in working with other educators to kind of fill them all in. And also help you plan accommodations that may be helpful for your child to be successful within the IEP. And then another person on your team that could possibly, and this is, some people love this person, some people do not love this person, and it is the Individual Iep Advocate. And that advocate can interpret the results of your child's evaluation. They can help you navigate the IEP and navigate the system of what the IEP really should look like, and help you plan an appropriate instructional program for your child with the school. Another person is a representative of the school system, and that person is someone who knows about special education, the services that they provide, and will also have the authority to commit to any resources or accommodations that may not be available directly, but will be available at some point, or can get them available to you. Another person is individuals with knowledge or special expertise about your child that you invite. That could be their therapist, pediatrician, RBTs, BCBAs, speech therapists, occupational therapists, any of those extra people that are in your child's lives, either day to day, week to week, that really know how your child will benefit from extra services at school. The next person is your child. In some states, your child is required by law to be in IEP meetings, and usually that's their sophomore year of high school. But again, that varies state to state. So check your laws and make sure that if your child is appropriately supposed to be in those meetings, that they are. And really, that's usually sophomore or junior year of high school. So next, what does the IEP consist of? An IEP can consist of a lot or a little. It just really depends on the services that your child needs. But an IEP must contain certain things. It's a document that is designed to meet your child's unique educational needs. So it's not a contract, but it does guarantee the necessary supports that yours and the services that you and your IEP team agree upon. And it must include the present levels of your child's education level. And that is your child's strengths and the needs, and it's presented by the teachers, parents, and the school staff who have evaluated your child. And comments will be made about how your child is doing in the classroom. It will give observations and results of state and district-wide tests and the special education evaluations. It also includes individually administered standardized tests. And it will give you access to basic academic needs and any other areas of concerns that have been identified, such as language development, behavior, or social skills. And those should all be discussed freely in your IEP. The second one is your goals. These are measurable goals that can reasonably be accomplished within a year. These goals should help you be involved and progress in a general education classroom with the curriculum. And it may be academic, it may be social, it may be behavioral, it may be self-help, or it may address other educational needs. The goals are not written to maintain skills or help them achieve goals above their grade level, but it gives you a baseline of what needs to be met within that year. They're benchmarkers. They will tell you how to measure progress towards that goal. It will and they will measure progress towards the goal, but they're not necessarily the end all be all. They'll change. They may need to be modified depending on what the overall goals are of the year. The law now states that children's IEPs must include a description of how the child's progress towards the annual goals will be measured. And when periodic reports of the progress that the child's are making towards annual goals will be provided. So usually that comes out the same time as report cards. One way to know if your goals are obtainable is to think SMART. And a SMART IEP includes specific, measurable, attainable, results-oriented, and time-bound. And a good SMART IEP will tell the team when and how often the learner's progress is measured. So it'll tell you every 4 months we need to check in to make sure that our SMART IEP is being met. So the next thing that should be included in your IEP is special education and related services. Once the IEP is written, the team has to decide how to put it into place. What is the action that's going to happen that takes the IEP from a piece of paper into the classroom? And that is the school district is obligated to provide a free, appropriate public education. And that's FAPE. I'm sure many of you have probably heard of that. And it's the FAPE has to happen in the least restrictive environment, so the LRE. You'll see a ton of acronyms like FAPE, IEP, 504, LREs throughout this process. And it's really important to break what that is so you're knowledgeable on those acronyms. So the IEP team considers the way to maximize the extent of appropriateness of the FAPE and the LRE. So again, the free, appropriate public education and the least restrictive environment. So you're trying to balance those two. You want both of them and they should be balanced. The services your child needs to reach the goals and objectives and how they'll be delivered are identified within these services. For most kids, the general education classroom will be the preferred setting, but a range of options are available, including special day classes. Sometimes it'll tell you the extent, if any, to which your child will not participate with non-disabled kids in a regular classroom and other activities. It may be including necessary transition services, usually at age 16, or the first IEP that will be in effect when the child turns 16. So now that we've talked about special education and the related services within the IEP, let's talk about one thing that may confuse people. What is the difference between 504 and IEP? And so really the main difference between an IEP and a 504 is who they're regulated by and what they're regulated for. So a 504 is guided by the ADA, which is the American Disability Act, of course, and is implemented after a diagnosis for physical or emotional disability. So it could be ADHD, it could be a hearing or a vision impairment, and it is the impairment which will hinder one or more life activity. It is usually a longer process with a lot of evaluations of academic impact. The accommodations are set forth for the 504 will help in the classroom and with testing for that child. So the IEP, like we talked about earlier, is guided by the IDEA, or the Individuals with Disability Education Act. And it is implemented because the learner has an identified as having a disability that negatively impacts his or her education and life, and the ability to receive a fair academic education. So the IEP can have the accommodations, the same accommodations as a 504, but it also can include OT, it can include speech, specialized instruction, classroom accommodations, specialized instructions, modified assignments, modified testing. It can be a plethora of accommodations to make sure that that child is getting a fair and equitable education. So overall, the whole education is modified from how your learner is taught to how the child can meet goals within their school year. And these criteria for meeting either will change state to state. So the next questions that we get a lot is about communication. Does communication really have an effect on your IEP? Yes, it really, really does. Communication is not only the foundation of a good relationship, it is an integral part of the IEP process. It creates protection for the IEP to be implemented properly. It gives the parents communication with the IEP team, and it's required for parents to be a part of the IEP team. One way is to have a clear communication, working on a personal parent input statement, and that's a statement that should be updated for every IEP meeting that you attend. It's not just one statement that you make and then that's the statement forever. It will change according to your child's needs and services. But what is a parent input statement? A parent input statement is a short letter which allows parents to share their concerns with the IEP team. That's basically what it is. It's a document that can show the learner's strengths and their struggles and their abilities, and it gives you a documented way to keep up with the learner's growth. If a case manager creates your parent impact statement, which is some case in some school districts, that's what happens, is a case manager comes on and writes your parent statement. But you need to make sure that you're really reading that through and that you agree with what that statement is and what you want in that statement. It can change to align with your ideas and input of the strengths and struggles of your student. So what happens if you don't agree or like how your IEP is handled for your learner's case? There's two things here: communication, communication, communication. I'll say that over and over again. Communication is going to be the utmost important tool that you have for your IEP and the relationship that you create with your school. Sometimes the IEP is a negotiation tool. It's kind of like, what is the give and take that you can give for your student, and then what are the services that are a direct need or that can maybe be delayed for a little bit. I think for me, I always rank the services that are the must-haves and then what are the ones that are nice to have. It may not mean that my child doesn't ever need that, but it may change that he might need it later, or if he's struggling, he may need it immediately, and that's when you can go through and communicate with your team that you need to modify your IEP. So just go ahead and create a list of services that you need and why your learner needs them, and start a ranking system. Some of them may be less urgent. And then another thing that's really important is to create a binder with your IEP information pertaining your child's education. Their IEP from previous years, services, goals, therapies received, and their struggles, their strengths. And BPI actually has a great IEP binder kit that you'll be able to download, and you'll just put it in your binder under your different files for how you break out your child's IEP. And that'll help you navigate the IEP realm. It gives you a step-by-step process of how your IEP should look, terms and terminology that you may need or not understand. It'll give you tools to document any communication, any attempts of a communication, and it'll all be in one place so that when you're going into your IEP meetings, you know exactly what you have in front of you. And if you have any questions, BPI has a school consultation on staff, or school consult on staff, to help you navigate in-home services. And Dr. Winiga is an expert in this field. She is phenomenal. And we would love to hear from you guys. And if you're currently if you're not receiving BPI services, we would be happy to get your learner started. And you can contact BPI at 888-308-3728. It was great talking to you, and if you have any more questions, comments, please link below and I'll check in and make sure that they get answered. Thanks guys, have a great day.